Hi, my name is Teresa Lugatiman, and I'm doing wound debridement for PT804. This is the lab part. The first part of our lab today is doing wound tracing. So I have here a baggie with today's date, the patient's initials, the clock orientation, and I have the muscle, bone, and connective tissue legend. So what we're gonna do is put the bag according to the orientation and trace the wound using a Sharpie. So I have here B for bone, NT for necrotic tissue, M for muscle, and the cross-hatching would be for the connective tissue. And I have the clock orientation 12, 6, 3, and 9. The next step would be to take our measurement of the necrotic tissue using the centimeter square. So we get the greatest length multiplied with the greatest width. So I have here a measurement of 4 centimeters for greatest length on the baggie and 4 centimeters for greatest width on the baggie, coming up with 15.6. Then we have to compare the measurements to the ham hock. The greatest length is 3.8. And the greatest width is 3.9. So as was presented to us at lab, there is a discrepancy between taking measurements from the bag versus taking measurements from the ham hock, and therefore if we were to evaluate wound, we have to be consistent in using which measurement system to use. So this is now my baggie. So to continue, the next step of lab is to be able to use the number 10 scalpel in performing shaving of a callus. So the number 10 scalpel is held between the 3rd and 4th fingers to stabilize it, and held by where the corrugated area is, and that should stabilize when we do our sawing motion to shave off the callus. My forearms are supported on the table to provide more stability, and so initially what has to be done is that the blade has to be angled a little bit and then flattened out to take out really thin shavings. So as you can see, I have shavings here from our callus formation. And if we hold it up to the light, it should be thin, almost transparent. In shaving the callus, we have to be careful to use the rounded edge of the blade and not use the tip, so as not to injure the patient or dig into the past the callus and into viable tissue. So there we go, we have shaved off callus over the bone. We have to stop. You can tell that where the callus has been shaved off, there is a lighter color, and we have to know when to stop so as not to get into the viable tissue and thereby hurting the patient or causing injury or bleeding. The next part of PT804 lab is cross-hatching or scoring. For this, we have to use a number 15 scalpel. And the way the scalpel is held is like a pencil between the first web space and held stabilized. And at the same time, we have to make sure that the cuts are made from the rounded part of the blade and not on the tip, because the tip can poke into the patient's skin, digging deeper into the tissue and causing injury. So my elbows, my forearms are stabilized on the table, and we will be doing the initial cross hatching. Now to do this, after each cut, we can take a look at if we've done deeper. This one seems pretty okay. We're still on the blue color. We're not poking into viable tissue. Right there, we're on the blue. You have to be careful to try not to dig the tip of the blade and use the rounded part of the blade. Right there. Okay, now we're going to make the cross hatch or perpendicular to the initial cuts that we made. See, so far we've just come just about but not into. We're really close. The lighter, you can see the lighter color on this one. We haven't dug into it, we're still on the blue. So now the final part of PT804 lab is to debride necrotic tissue using forceps and scissors. So for me, I tried the initial grip of holding the forceps between the first web space, but I don't feel very comfortable with that. I will be holding the forceps with this grip with the palm of my hand. The scissors are held with the dominant hand with the thumb and the fourth finger, using the index finger as a 3-point hold stabilizer. So when we make the cuts, we have to make sure that the scissors are pointing upward so as not to injure. So we have to remember that when we're cutting the necrotic tissue, the scissors have to be parallel and superficial to the wound bed. We have to make sure we don't have viable tissue. So this is now like 8 to 10 minutes into cutting necrotic tissue. So this were the tissue that I had snipped off, and as you can see, the color of the dyed part of the necrotic tissue is now lighter than the one earlier, and I had to stop because this portion especially is getting light, and I'm afraid that if I snip too much, it will be toward viable tissue.